want to flame them for playing goats,
Flame?
don't talk to Flame.
Flame's in chat. He wants to come in. He wants to come in, guys. Let's bring him in here. Let's bring him in.
Yeah, Flame, defend yourself.
We're bringing in Flame. Okay, I don't have Flame. Wait, who? Bring him in. Don't you have him as friend, ZP?
Yeah. I'll
bring Flame in. Bring him in.
Yep.
Let's hear it. We have. This is a public forum, guys.
I do want to make one point though. Before I bring him in, just say that. Fuck it. I'll just bring him in.
Okay. Nice.
Okay,
nice,
that was
nice. Thanks, ZP. ZP stands up on his soapbox and then he sits down. He's ready to fucking narrate, and he's done.
Hello, is this thing on?
Hello, Flame. What do you have to say, huh? What's going on?
Well, I guess, like, I don't know, there's two sides to this, right? There's, like, the idea that you can not go goats, right? There's, like, this idea that you can play DPS. But can you really play DPS? I think there's an argument that we should have played Ana goats on Attack Paris, but that's, like, a different idea. But I don't think Zen goats was the play. But that's a Zen versus Ana thing. So I think if we had gone Ana, we probably could have capped A. And if we cap A, I think we cap B, but not capping A is like the more.
What I don't understand is I feel like people were upset you guys played goats when you actually like looked good on.
We did. We played really well, and like we held them on second. We held them on second, and then we like could have taken second on attack, but people forget that Bumper hit like 3 5-man Earth Shatters, and like you can't really like. I mean, you can practice, but like when that happens, you just like kind of take it, you know? Like sometimes your Reinhardt.
Take it, boy.
Muma generally doesn't get Earth Shattered. That's like a thing. Like we usually are pretty good in the Earth Shatter wars. So like. I don't know, we lost Eichenwald, that sucked. And then Paris, we were like Rialto, we were like teetering with the idea of running DPS on defense. But I think everyone was feeling confident in the goats, so we just like ran the goats. But like, we didn't look bad on the goats, we held them for 3 minutes on their attack. It was just like, our attack sucked. Like, closing out against them is really hard because they're really good at staggering. But the narrative, I think my biggest problem is that I hate the narrative that the analysts or the talent think that they can coach better than the coaches. And so, like, I'm not really defending myself or my team. I'm really just, like, defending Tyrong and, like, the players. Because, like, everyone kind of... Like, I don't fucking decide the strats. Like, it's not me who's...
Yeah, that was my point, actually, right before you joined.
It's, like... But the idea, like, there's some teams and there's some coaches who, like, crumble under stress. Now, Tyrong's not one of them. But there are definitely coaches that, like, take the heat. And then they're like, oh, my God, the entire public thinks I'm trash. But, like, the idea that the casters think that they could coach a team better than the coaches is, like, offensive at, like, its core. And so, like, I don't care if they think, oh, maybe Outlaws could have played DPS. Like, that's a fine argument to have. But to say, like, Outlaws 100% should have been playing DPS this whole time, and their goats was never going to be Vancouver's goats. It's like, yeah, like, maybe our goats wasn't going to be Vancouver's goats. But do you waste 2 weeks of practice on DPS? Like, I don't think we look like we got severely outclassed by Vancouver.
Okay, listen.
Yeah, exactly. Is it worth the energy to, like, play DPS for a week and then, like, go back to goats?
No,
like,
I mean to have this argument on Twitter.
Listen, I was about to say, that's cool, but why do you care?
Yeah.
Why do I care what?
About what people say.
Oh, I don't, because it's not me. I don't give a shit, right? As like personally, I care that like it negatively impacts my coaches. Like I'm very protective of Tyrong, and like that's really it. It's not like I don't like the players don't care.
This is
the players
getting
just, like,
real
okay,
spicy.
But I think it gets to everyone's head when like your coach Tyrong gets very emotional, and like that's just a thing. And like it can't just be like everyone's barraging him with this like stupidity of just play DPS forehead. Like,
so he does crumble.
He gets no, I'm saying he gets emotional, but like you don't want people in a negative mindset after that match. Like I don't think anyone played poorly. Like I don't think you can like blame anybody. I think Arhan played pretty well. I think Muma played well. I think like Raucus, everyone played well. We just lost. But like how many people going into that match were like Outlaw's gonna win this? Outlaw's gonna make this close. Like how many people?
I did actually. I did. I did. I
good.
said you guys were gonna. I said it was gonna be a 3-1 for Titans. It was gonna be close and people.
That's good. That's good. But my point was like, do you think that we were gonna win? Do you think we were gonna win with like Dante on Pharah and Arhan on like Tracer? Like probably not. Like I don't know.
I will say Arhan actually looked pretty good on Tracer.
Arhan played. Yeah, Arhan's good.
He actually looked pretty good on Tracer.
When you go into scrims throughout the weeks, you don't play DPS. Like nobody's like playing DPS comp. It's like very rare. There's like some teams that try it every now and then, but then like they go DPS, then someone else goes Moira Sombra Goats, and then your DPS kind of gets shit on. So like, do you really want to play DPS? Like the counters to DPS are much easier to execute than the DPS itself. So like if we had rolled out with like Pharah, they would have just gone Soldier. It's not like they don't play Soldier Goats. They like play Soldier Goats all the time. They've shown Soldier Goats in matches. So like, I don't know. I just like. I hate the idea. I just hate when the casters like spread toxicity that doesn't need to exist solely to like prove that they're right when they're just wrong. Like that just annoys me.
Okay, but okay, all right. Let me counter your argument. So you remember when the fucking what was the fucking picture they put up super bad. They have me like they cherry pick stats. I'm like 7 fire strike. Like who gives a fuck about this? First of all, I don't like. You gotta go out
Yeah,
there.
you don't
You
care.
gotta start.
You don't care.
You gotta start slapping kids around and let them know
That's
they're wrong.
different. That's different. That's different. I'm not the one who's offended here, like, right? Like, I don't actually, like, realistically, at the end of the day, it's like Monty and Vren are gonna argue with me, and I don't really care. But the point is, like, I hate the idea that the public hive mind gets this, like, connotation that Outlaws coaches are bad or something. Like, that is what I'm defending. Because the idea of that is stupid. Like, I'm down with the idea that, like, oh, like, if the cast was more like, oh, you know, maybe if they ran DPS, they could have had more success. That's cool. But tweeting like, it's absolutely atrocious that they would try to run DPS goats into Vancouver when Vancouver's so good. Every team's been trying this for 2 years. No one's had success. So why do you think you would? It's like, you don't go into the match you can go into the match thinking you can win. But if you don't go, like, you can't, we didn't go into that match like, oh shit, we're going to shit on Vancouver's goats. It was like, we can take the Bumper versus Muma fight and Ruckus on the Ana versus Twilight Ana. And like, we had decent odds and we like won fights. But I just hate the idea of like spreading this narrative that the coaching staff was bad or that we didn't do everything in our power to win and that we were like actively throwing by playing goats into them when like that's just like an awful narrative to be pushing. Like super bad was dumb, but it wasn't. True. But like anyone inside, I guess, knew that it was dumb, and then you just dumpster them anyway. But it's very hard for like a coach to be like, you can't like. There's very few coaches that I feel like can flex after a match. It's like rare, especially in goats meta. Like you have to come up like the Torbjorn
resident sleeper, resident sleeper, resident sleeper, resident sleeper, resident sleeper, resident sleeper, resident sleeper.
Which is like why it's kind of really frustrating. Because like we spend so much time on strategy. Like every team spends time on strategy. You're not going to see Philly go out there with like some crazy comp they didn't practice. Like you're not going to see teams run DPS. In like Chengdu should be beating Vancouver if that's the logic, right? Like, but that's not happening.
I'm siding with Flame.
Like Chengdu's always going to be better than us at DPS comp because they run it like nonstop. But if the best team at DPS comp can't beat the best team at goats, why would you like try to gimp yourselves? It's like literally, it's like bringing arrows. It's like bringing a bow and arrow
weird
to a
champ
gunfight.
right, finger
like,
door
yeah,
flame.
win,
Weird champ right, finger door
you'd have
flame.
to play so perfectly, you'd have to like hit every arrow. It's like insane. I don't know.
All right, well, you know, I think that's fair, Flame.
Holy shit, we get it.
I think that's very fair. Myself, I'd recommend the strategy of not saying anything at all, but that's why I'm not GM. I'm not GM, right?
Well, the thing is, like, you get tilted right after a match. You're like kind of fired
resident
up. You're like, oh shit, we can win
Flame
this.
is
Like,
mad because Outlaws are bad. Resident sleeper.
Like, I was just fired up. But, like,
pump, of course.
Yeah, it's like the post-gym pump, but it's after a match. So like I felt, you feel good, but my point is like
you were feeling vascular after that.
Losing an argument to Reddit, losing an argument to Twitch chat.
I wasn't ready to take
losing an argument to Super Peplomau.
Fine. It's like I hate the idea of the casters spreading bad takes.
Chat more concerned with
like,
watching Toronto get clapped
like,
than listening to someone's
because
opinion.
It's easy to say super bad
on the inside of
Owl
Owl
it's not easy to
Megalyn.
back up super bad. And it's like easy to say Outlaw should have ran DPS comp, but none of the analysts are ready to justify like on a strategic level like how we're gonna beat Vancouver's goats on Iconwall B with DPS comp. They're just in their head saying, you know, oh, it worked on Mecha base, so therefore it'll work on Iconwall. And like the public perception of how Overwatch is played is like so
resident sleeper,
wrong.
Resident sleeper,
like
resident. Really good at rationalizing a poor decision.
Content anymore, but it's like such a terrible angle to be pushing that like teams are losing because of their coaching staff. It's like I thought Tyrone did a great job this week.
Cheering chat.
But the analysts and the casters pushing this narrative that our coaching was the problem is like so inherently awful that I feel like I need to defend it because like having my coaches and my players getting hate mail all week. As if like we tried to throw that match by running DPS is like
super bad
like, obnoxious. Like the idea of it's just so obnoxious, and it's like super venable, right? Because it's not like it's Reddit that's posting these. It's not like Reddit's posting, oh, they should have ran DPS, and maybe Reddit is posting that they should have ran DPS. But we don't care about that. It's like these paid professionals are like attacking the careers of people in my organization who don't deserve that at all. When like their takes are just so wrong that it's like stupid. It's like why are you pushing this narrative? Like, what are you gaining out of this? Do you want to sound right? Like, what do you actually gain by saying Outlaw should play DPS?
What he said, I missed.
Like, are you actually arguing that you would have been a better coach of the team this week? Like, that's how I view it.
Isn't that their job though, to analyze what they think should have happened and what you guys should have done or what you did wrong and what you
could have? It's different. It's different than saying Outlaws could have ran DPS and maybe had a better success rate, and actively saying Outlaws is actively, this is stupid, this is an awful idea. There's like a very large gap there between how people perceive it. It's like, yes, I agree. Maybe there were maps, maybe like Paris we could have maybe taken with a DPS comp on attack. I agree with that. But that's different than saying the idea of them running goats is atrocious and awful. Like, there's actually saying Super could have played bad, or Super could have played better, or Super could have blocked that shatter, and Super played like trash. It's like a different. The way it's presented is very different, and like I have like a problem with the idea that the casters can like attack the coaching staff, and the coaching staff can't fight back.
I don't care.
Like I'm not the one who coached the players to like run goats this week. It's like that's just not like I don't have a stake in the whole like strategy talk. So like I can defend the strategy if I think it was right, but
I said shut the frick up, chat.
I don't like the idea that like Tyrong's like some like management takes like Reddit far too seriously, and like there's been people who have been fired because of Reddit takes, and like that's happened. Like, everyone knows it's happening.
Tell Flame next time.
And like, I don't want people thinking Tyrong's a bad coach because the analysts think Tyrong's a bad coach, or that Tyrong didn't coach the team to his best capabilities this week. It's like if, I don't know, it's like if Shock had gone out with
discussion needs to
DPS
be a whole
comp and then
episode
lost
of
to
Fresh
somebody,
Nuts.
and then someone's like, oh, this is awful, they should fire Junkbuck. Like, it's like, what?
I mean,
he doesn't know, he lacks the
I don't know. I think at the end of the day, no matter what this is, it could be fucking. We could play some footy in the backyard. We could be fucking playing Overwatch. At the end of the day, there's always gonna be public ridicule, public outcry. People have always gotten in trouble for public, you know, whether it's right or wrong. It's just the way it is sometimes. And I think at the end of the day, you have to realize that no matter what people say, you know what's different, and you can't really pay them any mind. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for me. It's easier for me than it is for other people. I just feel like I need to defend some people that don't defend themselves because they don't feel like they can. But it's a different. I mean, it's different strokes for different folks. I'm not going to say that I should have. I'm not saying that I should have gone to a Twitter battle because I probably shouldn't have. Like, obviously, in retrospect, I should have just like kept my mouth shut because now I have like people like Bren telling me that my tweets are trash when like he dresses like a girl and then tweets.
Oh shit! Okay.
Like okay.
Whoa! Repeat that! Repeat that! Repeat that! One more time! One more time!
Bren tweeted at me that I tweet like a Reddit user, but I don't really know what a Reddit user tweets like. Because his Twitter is arguably one of the worst in Overwatch League.
Oh, okay.
Ah, I see. Flame. We have a direct call out. Flame Bren Twitter war.
Point being, the idea that the casters can attack the players or the staff of teams and they can't really defend themselves without getting ganged up on is kind of like atrocious.
So there is one point of clarification here, regardless of who's right or wrong, is that when you say attack, I mean, there is the job of the staff to criticize what they're seeing to the best of your ability. Like
criticizing. There's a difference between criticism and attacking. Like we both know this. I can say ZP's analysis this game was like subpar, right? I can like be like ZP missed that team fight and it was bad. Like there's a difference between Kate Mitchell calling Hex's casting bad or whatever, and then like. Which is, I think, what she did, right? It was something very much like...
Yeah, she said that he
team
just
fights all the time. It was pretty much like your... Yeah, it was like a straight-up attack, right? It was like your casting is garbage. Like, that was more or less the gist of it. It wasn't like, I wish Hex had seen what I'd seen and, like, you know, could have thought about this in a different way. It's like very... There's a difference between, like, a gray area and going straight black and white. And I feel like going straight black and white is not the job of the casters or the analysts. And if it is, it needs to be presented in a way that's a little bit more forgiving rather than just like creating a hive mind mentality that the coaches are doing a poor job and now everyone needs to attack them on Twitter. It's like very, I mean, the super bad thing was even mild, I would say, comparatively, because even the people on the desk were like, holy shit, why does this say this? Like they laughed about it. They were like, who made this graphic? It wasn't like...
I definitely laughed about it.
They weren't pushing the narrative like super's garbage. It was like, what? They were all like taken aback by it, I think. But that's different. That's like different than them being like, it's the same as like when people, I don't know, there was a match last week, I think, and I want to say someone on broadcast said something along the lines of, if you're looking to replace someone on Mayhem, you start with Zephyr. And I'm 99% sure that came out of a caster's mouth. And I thought to myself, like, that crossed the line. Like, that's definitely a line that's being crossed that I don't think should ever be crossed. But like, once you get away with that, you can go as far as you want. Like, stuff like that is like so... It's just wrong. It's just like inherently awful. Like how do you broadcast that like this player's career should be the next on the chopping block? Like how do you say that to the public? Like that's so.
Why is he still
I feel like that's like not okay. Like imagine you're just like playing super and then someone's just like, yeah, if you're gonna replace anyone on Shock, you start with super.
Okay,
that literally happened.
Again, I'm going.
I'd say they're
going to
wrong.
say, like,
Because I'm nasty
I
in the game.
I agree.
Another, but
I agree.
again, to say traditional commentary in any sport goes along that way. Like, I'm not going to hold up this particular person as like a bastion of like great commentary or anything, but what do you think like Stephen A. Smith does, right? Like, if you look at any sport and commentators and analysts, etc., you will constantly see is like, is it time for X player to go? And that'll be a whole segment. And otherwise, again, not talking about like, is this right, wrong?
That's different. I mean, that's different than like the NBA broadcaster mid-match, or like the NFL caster mid-match saying like, it's different because people who watch the analyst segments are different. Like, it's a different audience. It's like a different take. It's like.
Esports doesn't have the hard divide though between.
I mean, Owl does.
Casters say.
I'm saying Owl has the difference between. Well, I'm saying Owl has the difference between like watch point. I'm not like trying to attack the casters here. I just think it's like. I just think
the argument that like in the NBA it's like relegated to desks and shows, and then you don't have the people that are calling the game get into takes. That's also just a difference.
Well, yeah, but I would say sports. I would say sports is more established in the sense that when you hit like. I don't know what the word is. Like the GMs of a sports team, or like the presidents of a sports team, or the fans of sports teams in general, I would say are generally more in tune with sports than Overwatch. Like people understand.
You have not listened to the average sports fan, dude. The average.
No, I know, but I'm saying, like the fundamental.
Let's go, LeBron James.
It's easier to see a mistake in football, I would say, than goats. From like the naked eye.
Hey guys, Flame here.
Like,
Red Brand's
my point was more just like I feel like the players get their careers attacked more than I would care to see
they crossed the line
in the Overwatch League, and that is like my general point, I guess. It's like there's no world where Zephyr can defend himself on Twitter. There's no like person who can go out and say Zephyr's a great player, but people now have this created narrative in their head that Zephyr is bad and Mayhem should cut him, and that came.
Zephyr has looked really bad though in.
What do you say when Zephyr literally has caused Mayhem to lose then?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, I don't know.
I'm going to
what do you say there? Zephyr really doing a good job donating the win to the enemy team. They should keep him on.
No, but it's not about the point. It's about the wording. It's less about like the point. Like obviously you can say Zephyr's underperforming. I don't think you say cut Zephyr. I think there's like a difference.
But people do say cut players in other traditional sports and that. So I guess for me is that I'm going to attack this from a just general sports commentary point of view rather than like specifics, because that's the only way I can. That's as someone that's also a commentator. But in other sports, people say cut this player all the time. Like that is a harsh judgment made by analysts.
But I would say analysts. Yeah, okay. I think again, there's people. The people who are saying that in sports are, like, I would say generally are more informed or have a better understanding of said sport. I think it's like.
Are you telling me Stephen A. Smith is well informed for the NBA, or that what's it called? Colin Cowherd.
Say that. I would say that
when Colin Cowherd goes on the show and says that this player should be cut, that's someone who knows what they're talking about. Like, I would actually argue that esports people overall are generally a lot more informed than the average traditional sports analyst. Like, the reason why everyone is like basically worshiping at the altar of Tony Romo is that Tony Romo is like so much better than the average analyst in the NFL. But I would argue that overall the esports, like, where the average esports person is like a lot better than the average traditional sports.
No, but my point was, well, I mean, I agree with that. I was going more in the direction of like, do you think that the average?
Thank you for the new emote content, Flame.
I don't know what the word is. Like the stakes are different. I feel like Overwatch is a very tight knit community. Like there's only so many people that are on that subreddit, right? It's like between Twitter, Reddit, and I guess that's it. Viewers, there's probably like a pretty massive overlap. Like there's not that many people who watch anymore. It's like what, like 80K viewers. Maybe we had more. I don't know what the viewership was like.
I think it was well over 100K.
It was like 100 and it's been like a steady 105 all day.
Okay, so 100 all day. The subreddit has however many people. It's not that many, but it's like I think it's about 200. The point is like Overwatch is very tight knit. I think sports fans, it's like a different thing. It's like audiences size and stuff. Like I just feel like the Overwatch community in general is like very small, and like word travels way faster than people watching sports broadcasts. And I don't really think that sports is easily comparable because it's not generally kids in their like teens and like people who are very, I don't know what the word is.
I do think there's one argument here. Let me make the argument that I think you're trying to make, which is true to a degree and maybe merits the idea of like how these things should be handled, even though I don't think there's any real solution. Is that
Please
I would say that the management of teams in esports are much more sensitive to public opinion and in terms of making changes on their teams than the average traditional sports team. Like the average traditional sports team.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. Yes. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Yeah. That's what I mean. The average traditional sports team's not going to care about Stephen A. Smith, right? But the average traditional esports team, people get fired because of Reddit opinions, and it's happened multiple times.
Okay, if that's the point you're making,
Tyrone's not going to get fired, right? Like, there's no world where Tyrone gets fired. But there are other people who aren't Tyrone who I'm sure could potentially get fired solely because of like a situation like today where people are like, "Oh, this coaching staff doesn't know what they're doing. They obviously didn't want to win this match if they thought Goats was the match." Like,
isn't that a failure of the organization though, and not a failure of Reddit?
But that's a. I don't think it's a failure.
Why should we blame the public for being stupid?
I'm not blaming Reddit though.
Well, but the thing is, why should we blame everyone other than the people in charge of that person's job? Why? Why are we blaming everyone other than the person in charge of that person's job?
I mean, you can blame the people, right? I'm not saying you don't. I'm saying it's dangerous. I'm not saying that it's anyone's fault. I'm saying it's dangerous. Like I agree with you. It's not.
At the end of the day, if coaches get fired from casters' opinions and shit like that, like
and players,
those and players, then the fucking organization's at fault.
Yes,
Fuck
agreed.
Like,
but it's happened. It hasn't just been like one. It's not like a one-off thing. Like it's happened a couple times. Like my point isn't that the system's perfect. Like I agree that in a vacuum I shouldn't have tweeted at all. Agreed, 100%. But I think that like the idea that players' careers are on the line because of stuff like that. Like I think that there's a world where if like Overwatch League wanted to push a narrative that Super was trash, that over time people start looking for reasons as to why Super is trash, and they start like zooming in on everything Super does. But the point is that like the management in OWL right now on like the overall level in terms of like knowing the game and like understanding the game or like how the game flows and what's right, what's wrong is like pretty new. I'd say like pretty bad like overall.
Flame, I do think there's a solution here. Like regardless of whether people are right or wrong, like I'm just gonna point back to what's happened in the NFL and the Patriots law, right? Where the Patriots like have started out the season really bad at times, and literally every fucking NFL analyst in the book says the Patriots are fucking shit, like they're fucking terrible. And you know why it doesn't matter in the end? Because they end up fixing their shit, they go forward, and they end up winning the Super Bowl at the end. The easy solution here, if you do believe there's a disconnect between what people are saying and the reality, is the Outlaws just have to go forward and clap. Like if the Outlaws go 6-1, like then the Outlaws win, right?
I think you're arguing
wrong on the analyst desk.
No, I don't.
Made them look bad by comparison.
Hey,
you're arguing a different point. Like I agree that the obvious solution to anyone saying that our Goats was bad or that we shouldn't run Goats is just to win with Goats.
Average understanding
of the sport. That's like less of what the problem is, right? Like I don't. On like an Outlaws level, this isn't like an Outlaws thing. Like I'm not really. This isn't like an Outlaws specific problem is, I guess what I'm trying to say. It's not like I don't think anyone on Outlaws feels like they care, realistically. Maybe coaches getting overwhelmed or something is annoying, but from like my perspective, like I don't care if Reddit thinks that we're bad at Goats or that like we didn't play Goats well today. Because like we probably could have played Goats better today, sure. But that's like different than the fact that like I feel like there's a fundamental issue with like the league when it comes to the way players are treated by the desk or by the casters, whatever, which leads into like bad situations for them solely because of like management that isn't in tune with everything.
Okay, so question: do you think that the analysts and the casters should be free of criticism of players and coaches, or they should not be able to criticize them? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Well, Flame is saying that they shouldn't be they shouldn't do it in a way that's degrading or mean-spirited or too harsh. But the thing is, who draws the line and like what?
That's what I was gonna say next.
Like who draws the line drawn? Where is the line drawn exactly? And other than the caster come up straight and like, fuck this guy. This guy is the worst. I hate his guts. But I don't think any caster has gotten to that point.
There's definitely lines, right? I'm not saying that there is a hard line that you can't cross, but I would say that there's obvious situations where you could say the line was crossed if the line existed. Not that you could draw the line. Like, there's definitely, like, extremes, right, that have happened.
Do you think there are examples, clear-cut examples, of the casters and analysts currently hurting a player's career directly?
Yes, I think that the direct statement, I think you look to replace Zephyr, is a terrible statement to make. I think that
so what should...
I think, though, here's the thing, though. I'll be honest, like, I generally avoid definitive statements, but in the Zephyr case, I have specifically said that on stream here because Zephyr has had so many bad points, and there's so many obvious examples of better off-tank players.
It's different though. I agree. It's different though.
Well, this is our personal stream rather than a national, the broadcast of the league.
Yeah, it's different.
But at
You're
the
not
same
on Disney
time,
XD or some shit.
This is their opinion, right? And if they really think that Zephyr is the problem, then what else are they supposed to say?
Look, man, my point isn't that. I mean, my biggest problem is with the immaturity of the league in like a fundamental, everyone understanding the game, and like the NFL is not going to care if Stephen A. Smith says Tom Brady's trash, right? Because
well,
they know Tom Brady's not trash. Well, whatever. Point being that, like, if an analyst comes out and says Jake's awful, right? Like, I know better than to be like, okay, Jake's not bad, right? But like, I mean, the casters can make arguments. That's fine. But like, from the maturity of the league perspective, not every like management team is gonna have that like ability to like decipher, which is good.
Well, I mean,
and like, I don't want to blame the casters for like that, but I would say that they definitely make it riskier. It's definitely riskier in Owl than normal, because even like LCS and I'm sure CS:GO is probably a little bit more in line. Like I would say that like management and teams have a better understanding, but I think that there's a lot of people in positions of power in the Overwatch League that like aren't in tune with like why GOATS is good, or like why you run these comps, or why the coaches with like why GOATS is good, or like why you. So I think it's just like teeters like this fine line of like, yes, where you're saying a player should be cut. There is a world where that statement does directly lead to a player being cut. And so like that is like risky in itself. Like it's not going to happen on Outlaws. I'm not defending Outlaws. I do think that we could have probably played like a DPS comp on Paris, but that's like a different argument. I just think it's like weird that you can like attack the coaching staff of a team as an analyst on like a basic fundamental level that like jeopardizes their integrity as a job. Yeah, I know, I understand. My point is that like in Owl, it's like it's far worse solely because of the maturity of like where everybody is.
I guess here's the thing though, is that here's my work. I understand what you're saying in terms of sensitivity to the system. You're saying the consequences are bigger, but the common, as far as I can tell, is acting in line with what is every sport. The problem here is basically you're saying the management of teams that cannot handle nor process the commentary in a good way. But to me, that doesn't seem to say that the commentary has to change. More so, it says that the management for teams needs to be
I mean,
on better
it's
factors
both.
than just
It's both.
But
But it's both, right? It's like I think that like the casters have more experience in esports than 90% of the management talent or management teams in the league, right? That's like I'd say that's pretty fair to say.
I'm losing viewers? I had to mute myself. Bro, look, my viewers is climbing. My viewers is climbing, bro. You're straight wrong. You're straight wrong.
They have the expertise. My point is more along the lines of like, I don't think you can like expect everyone in Overwatch League to deal with the criticisms in their first season. Like I think last season I was a lot more emotional than this season, but it's like the toxic atmosphere of Overwatch League I do think is like pushed a little too hard in general by the talent, even if it's not on purpose. I think it creates a toxic atmosphere.
No.
And so like that has a negative impact on a lot of these people who aren't
the
ready for it.
management is very sensitive.
And so like last year Tyrone like had like points where he felt broken, right, by like Reddit
charge
or by
the gladiator while playing.
And, like, now this season that doesn't happen. But the idea, I'm more like against the idea of it because like I can imagine what it's like if you're like a coach for, I don't know, if you're Valiant's coach right now.
He is never wrong. Just ask him.
But like maybe you can blame the system in some cases, but it's like some teams aren't mature enough to deal with that, or
I want to
even be able to like shut up.
Like yes, Valiant's getting barrage, but I feel like the need for coaching changes there. If they're doing it off commentary and not the fact that they started out 0-7 in stage 1.
I mean, Valiant was probably the worst example I could give him, but my point was more
I feel like the record speaks louder than the commentary.
Yeah, but like that's like
your team is 0-7, you're trash. No, like the record alone is enough.
No, my point was more like once you start going 0-4, once you start going 0-3, some teams like crumble, some management is crumbling. It's very hard to be mentally strong in Overwatch League, I would say, from like a public perception perspective, because like your day in day out is Overwatch. You watch Overwatch, you spend the entire day watching Overwatch, and then the only thing you know is just like beating you down. Like you don't really have. There's no like escape for a lot of these people. Like I don't. If I have my dog here, like, if you don't have Overwatch, it's just all Overwatch. So when Overwatch starts going bad, everything starts going bad, and so like that's kind of. I think that's different in sports. That's why I think sports most people probably have like families, lives, and a lot more money.
Well, I'll say this.
So it's like a different.
This isn't even an Overwatch specific thing. I think it's an esports to traditional sports thing. Is that in traditional sports, there's generally more security for players because just to the nature of like how long it takes to build up a player, how long it takes to sign them, the amount of money involved, etc. Like I do get the entire idea that players in general, like, and I don't really think it's like specifically related to compensation of any sort, but obviously players feel more fucking nervous because like the timetable's so accelerated that you can be in for like a stage and then never play again, and that's just because esports is a lot more fluid than traditional sports. So I totally understand why people are like stressed out and otherwise, right?
Yeah, I mean my point. I guess my point being more along the lines of like. I guess you made a good point there too, because like if you look at it in a vacuum, if like someone's propping, if you're a coach, right? Let's say you're a coach, and this happens a lot. There's like coaches who aren't super fully in depth with.
What was that?
That was
No, that wasn't my phone.
Was that Flame's phone?
That was my phone. The idea of like, let's say you're a coach, and there's definitely inexperienced coaches.
Because I'm an outsider.
Fair, right? Fair statement to me. If like someone pushes this narrative that Super's the problem, let's say Shock starts losing, and then like there's like this large Reddit narrative and coaching and analyst narrative that Super's the problem or Elf's the problem, and then they get benched because the casters are like, they start like specifically looking at this like, maybe you're right, let's try this, that, and another thing, which does happen in Overwatch. You can tell me it doesn't, or you can tell me it's not supposed to, which I agree, it shouldn't, but that does happen. So like I agree that it's stupid that the casters can't say what they want, but I will say that it's equally stupid that the league is at an immature point in its life where these criticisms get taken far too far, which doesn't happen in normal sports or traditional sports because
I apologize on the behalf of all Houston fans.
Security thing. But if like your coach starts benching you because of these things, like everyone thinks you're bad and you shouldn't be playing and they should cut this player and then your career's just over, I think that happens in Owl. I think it shouldn't happen in Owl, and I can definitely blame management for it happening in Owl. But the idea of it happening in Owl is bad. Like,
I just think
the idea that happens is bad, and so like I guess the casters aren't the way to like fix the problem, but I think that them pushing the narratives like makes the problem exacerbated, and it does at the end of the day negatively impact staff and players. Where I do agree that it shouldn't. I like 100% agree that it shouldn't. I 100% agree that it's not really the casters' fault. But I think that they can be more sensitive to the fact that the league isn't in a position where their narratives and like
Can you also put Flame in the power rankings later?
I just think that you basically make the argument that it's in the heart, it's the problem of the management, not the casters, which already like from the casting point of view, that's kind of a checkmate in and of itself, right? But even beyond that, asking people to tone down commentary that is definitely still in line with other traditional sports and saying like to take heat off the fastball because management of other teams doesn't know what they're doing. I just, from the commentary perspective, I don't.
But I'm saying is that an unfair assertion? I guess like maybe you're right. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass, right? Like maybe this whole thing doesn't make any sense. But
I think the dynamic of what you're talking about exists. I do think like commentary absolutely can influence players, specifically because what you're saying in terms of management not knowing what they're doing can be very real for certain teams. I just don't think the solution is that the commentators change up what they're doing. As a result, I think the solution is you need smarter management.
Flame has as much brain cells as Houston has wins. PagChomp Flame has as much brain cells as...
So it's like...
Houston
I just think I think that the commentary could be more sensitive to the
Houston has
conflict
wins.
of the fact that it
PagChomp.
happens. It's very hard to be mentally... They're not aware that what they're saying does have these consequences. And maybe they don't care, and that's fine, but I don't think that that's fine. Like, I personally would not do that. And like, I've been on both sides of the desk, right? Like, I understand what's right and what's wrong.
Baby rich casters or
what's right and what's wrong, but I'd never
rich.
say. I guess like a player's playing bad, but I would never say, get this player out of here. It's like I don't know. It doubles back, but there's definitely a world where I feel like they can help the situation by not pushing the negativity. But
so
when
here's
the negativity
the problem,
gets pushed, it's like
In terms of how you fill a specific analyst segment, right? I'll give you an idea how you can quickly get to the idea of, well, cut this player or bench this player, right? You're in an analyst segment and, you know, you get asked, the topic is, why is Team X struggling? And you go, well, they're struggling because of this, this, and this. And one of the things I mentioned is that, you know, player X is not doing very well. Like we talk about this, like, you know, I get asked, why is MAM struggling? And then they go, well, MAM is struggling, you know, part, their off-tank play has been pretty subpar. And then the follow-up question is, so what should they do to fix it? The gut response in that case, because Zephyr is playing like really poorly, has to be, well, they should look into other options for Zephyr, which is essentially saying cut Zephyr. But that's actually the response that most anyone would have to that situation, right? To continue off the Zephyr example. So for a baseline analysis segment, I don't know how you dance around the issue of saying to cut Zephyr.
Flames,
like I don't think you can dance around that.
Well, there's I mean, but you could
Seagulls in chat.
There's different
Seagulls in chat, guys.
There's different ways,
Seagulls here.
different ways of like explaining it, because maybe Zephyr's not good in this meta. That's fine. Like Coolmat, realistically, we didn't play Coolmat last season because he wasn't doing well goats, but now he's doing fine. But like if we were playing poorly last season with Coolmat, the solution wouldn't be cut Coolmat. It would be give Coolmat more time to adjust to this meta, or you know, try something else because Coolmat, it's not working out for him, right? And you could like make that statement without being like get Coolmat off the team, replace him at a base level, remove his salary and his livelihood. It's like a different
Flames, reputation,
like,
point
it's a different
underscore
push.
right,
It's a different like, oh, try this other player that's on your bench maybe out in this role.
Flames,
Which I think is a fine statement to make,
point
especially if it's like a blatant
right,
case like
chart
Zephyr. But the idea of like,
underscore downwards underscore trend.
and this player's livelihood is different.
Flames, reputation,
And so
point
that's where I guess I kind of draw the line. But I just think it's weird. The whole point of today was like, I just felt it was awkward or bizarre that the casters thought that they could coach better than the coaches.
Flame graduated
like, I
from
find
the
that just
University of
wrong.
Waterloo with a PhD
I don't think they've ever
in
made
ethics in video game. Journalism.
I can't speak to any specifics here, but I think that's not usually the way the commentary comes down. I think that they have a take saying it. Like in this here, the baseline story was basically no one is going to beat Titans right now at Goats v Goats. They're too strong. The only success anyone's seen against Titans is running something else, is basically what they ran with, which objectively, that has been the case.
Flames
going into
rant
it
locked us in a
is probably where that came
space-time
from.
continuum.
I've
been sent here to beg you to stop
I
him
guess
at
for me
all
is that
cost. If you
commentary,
fail, all
their
life
job
on Earth
is,
will
here's what we've
perish.
seen on matches, here's what has worked, here's what hasn't, and make
Delete
judgments
the
from there on
VOD
out.
flame
That's,
Well, yeah, I mean, if
Delete
Vancouver
the
had ever
VOD
lost, I'd
flame
like
is coming.
policy
Delete
value
the
in that, but
VOD flame is
Vancouver hasn't lost.
coming. Delete the VOD
So like, but
flame
my
is
point was
coming.
that
Delete
I don't
the
think
VOD
I don't think the way
flame
we
is
played
coming.
today was. I don't think there was any other strategy that we could have employed that would have had a higher success rate.
Flame
than
has
on,
as
like,
much brain wrinkles as Outlaws have a good Zen
We're just
player and a
lost,
Tracer
yes.
player.
But that's not the way that the commentary comes out. It pushes the narrative that Outlaws coaching doesn't know what they're doing, or that Outlaws didn't do everything in their power to win this match, and that it was a complete strategical error, which I think is just wrong. So like, can I say that I think that that's wrong? Like, I don't.
You can. You can.
I mean,
indeed.
you can, but why would you?
You
What's
can
the point?
indeed.
Like, what do you get out of it?
He
Like,
can
what,
say- you
saying
can say
saying
it.
that you disagree. Like, well, what does that do for you? I'm just curious. I want to know.
My point wasn't to defend myself though. It was like, I mean, realistically, I shouldn't have tweeted. You got me right. Like, I agree. I shouldn't have tweeted. But the idea that the like Reddit or like that the hive mind pushed the narrative of Outlaw staff doesn't know what, like the coaches don't know what they're doing, is like a terrible take that could propel into like a very negative experience for a lot of people.
well,
and so,
to be fair, one thing I think there is.
I think if anyone can defend it, it's me, because I'm not in a position where I even decided the strategy. So it's just my take. Like, can I analyze my own team? I don't know. It's like, I've analyzed other teams. I tweet about other team strategies and like what they've done, but I think that it's my own take to push that we did our best to win,
what you've just
and that
said
we
is
weren't
one of the
actively
most
throwing. But like, I
insanely
don't know.
idiotic
It's just like
things
a
I have
post-match
ever
tweet. You
heard.
can post whatever. You can post like,
At
sorry
no
we
point
lost.
in
You
your
can post like,
rambling,
I don't know,
incoherent
whatever you want.
response
I
were
just
you
felt like
even close to
it
anything
made
that
sense to defend the idea that
could be
Ghost was the best
considered
play
a
there.
rational
But I don't really
thought.
have time to sit here and like
Everyone
make a YouTube
in
video
this
about
chat
like
is now dumber
why
for
DPS is
having
not going to
listened
work
to
on I go all.
I
So,
one
award
thing
you
you remind me
might be
of,
the
this is something that
wins,
maybe
and
is a
may
good
have
like bridge
mercy
gap
on
moment
your
to
soul.
like address both sides. Is that one thing that you don't see as much is like post-game interviews
Avast just
playing as
picked
big
up
role,
20%
particularly with
more
like
viewers
coaches and
during this from
management,
the
right? Where
beginning
you
of
get to the end of
Legion.
an NFL game, and then there's plenty of times where coaches or where analysts and broadcasters will totally put a team on blast during the game, and then you'll get to the post-match interview with the coach and be like, "So, coach, you kept doing running plays even though you got nothing with it. What was the logic there?" And you'll get a response saying like, "Well, we thought we were going to get destroyed on the pass, so that was our only choice." And generally it ends right there, right? Where it'll be like, "Well, on the coach today, Coach Andy Reid said blah blah blah." So I mean, I feel like you're almost making the argument for like stronger post-game press conferences that are involved as part of the broadcast or
imagine being a general manager for a
Well, I mean, there's just never a time where, I mean, they only talk to the winners at the end of the match. So
bro, sane girl, chill. Sane girl, 1,000 bits along with the gifted subs.
I think it is kind of bizarre.
Chill, sane girl. Thanks, I appreciate it. But we're just having a laugh. We're having a giggle.
There's no like questions being asked. It's just like here, it's just like, okay, bye, and then it's just
well,
like,
the thing is, because the interview's
happening
right after, you don't want to do a loser's interview right
no, I
agree,
because
it's like, you just lost the game. How are you doing? It's like, I feel like shit. I lost the game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
A classic pressure.
You know what? I'm cutting in here. I'm cutting in here, guys. Boink told me to ask you something very important, Flame. And also because I want to stop your spiral. I want to stop your nosedive. So, what do you think about teams using more Mei?
Tell Flame to subscribe to your stream so he can finally be a wrinkle brain.
I like Mei.
You like Mei?
But I don't make the strategical points here, else Outlaws will be playing Mei Goats. That's the real kicker here.
Okay.
Mei Goats is good versus Baptiste Goats, but not so good.
Ooh, well, I have to say, this has been a good convo, but let's, any closing remarks? Any closing remarks here? Do we have anything else to add?
Okay, class, for homework,
no,
I
regret tweeting, but I don't regret
essay on today's lecture.
I don't think the message was wrong.
MLA
I definitely tweeted incorrectly, but I definitely think that the idea of
Avast has a cardboard
commentary
box palace
negatively
thanks to all
impacting
these
players and staff's careers is like a very big problem in the Overwatch League specifically. And I wish that there was a way to solve it that didn't involve
Gladiators, one map, one by the way.
Better management, but I think Overwatch is too new of a game to have that solved already. There's a lot of people in power positions that maybe weren't ready. I wasn't ready last year, but
I love you, Avast, but I think my brain has gotten smoother than a bowling ball listening.
Impacting a lot of people's lives, and I do think that the casters do propagate it at an alarming rate that doesn't need to exist in general. But I don't think it's every caster. I don't think it's everybody. I don't see Mitch or Mr. X attacking players or staff on Twitter. But
so do you think there are specific people that do it?
I think that there's enough specific people that do it that it's become a norm, and that people think it's okay. But I think that it is having very large negative side effects that are impacting people's careers on a legitimately large scale, to the point where it's enough of a problem that all the players and staff talk about it amongst themselves on a daily basis.
Which
do you think there are specific teams that impacts more, or are you just saying it's an overall Overwatch League problem?
Continues his argument.
And in fairness, I do feel like if Flame that's specifically just going to be calling out certain teams.
Yeah, I don't want to call out certain teams, but you can definitely say that there's been there's definitely been hires made off of Reddit. There's also definitely been trades declined because of Reddit. And that's a different argument. But the point is that the fact that the hive mind is influencing careers is a bad situation to be in, but it's one that exists and is it's real. So I don't think that it's the caster's fault that the situation exists. But I think the fact that the situation exists needs to be addressed.
Okay, I'm just going to say Aunt Monty was right. Goats versus Titans was stupid. Hey, Avast, what's up?
Almost 2K Pog. Almost 2K Pog. Is that a Flame subscription?
It's an unfortunate problem that doesn't have a solution. But the fact that the unfortunate problem exists should be acknowledged and probably.
Flame, did you just subscribe?
No, do you want me?
No,
someone gave you a sub.
Oh, someone gave Flame a sub. Nice. Good
Yeah.
subscription. Nice. Thank you for the gifted sub, bro.
In Avast chat.
Wait, where's
you too can be a wrinkle brain by subscribing to
you have your emotes now.
By using
hand bammer. Thanks, hand bammer.
Here's what I'll say again to it, and it is somewhat going in circles, but just speaking in general for commentary.
Oh, we have not even completed the full circle yet, ZP. You just keep going, okay? We just keep going here. We're gonna have the world's longest circle soon enough, boys. Guinness, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Guinness?
Look, in the end here, I get the impact of all this is, and otherwise the stuff that definitely happens. I just don't think you can ask commentators, or commentary in general, any sport, any circumstance. People are going to get things right. People are going to get some things wrong. Hopefully in most cases there's a lot more right than wrong. But asking people whose job is to commentate on the game, be passionate about the game, and have strong opinions about the game, to nerf themselves specifically because management cannot handle themselves, I don't think that's a bridge you can cross, nor is something that probably should be crossed in regards to that.
I just think it's a sad situation. I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't think that Monty. It's not gonna affect Tyrone's career. It's not gonna affect the players' careers. It's not gonna affect mine.
Avast.
Right?
Okay, Flame.
But the idea of it affecting other players' careers is it's sad, but it's real. And I can't fix it. I can't help them. I can't go to every team's manager and be like, hey, in this situation, I don't think that this opinion was correct.
Again, I apologize on behalf of Outlaw fans.
I think there are times where you probably can, and maybe someone has a lot of inside information and they can make assertions. But I think when you start making assertions that are just dangerous, and
what up, Boink? Thanks for the subscription, bro. I asked him about May.
Truth.
I asked him, Boink.
100% correctness. Then you start treading this fine line in Overwatch League where you start you can just directly break a player's career, and this isn't a problem that only I see. There's a lot of the players talk about it a lot. And it's scary. And I guess today was just another one of those situations where it directly affected my team, or it was involving my team. But to
long ago, members
it didn't need
of
to be
the
my
Discord
team.
call
I just felt
lived together
it was,
in harmony. Then
it's
everything
just not a
changed
good
when
thing
Flame
to be
joined.
happening. I don't
Only
know how to
Avast,
explain it more.
master
It's
of
just
memes,
on
could
a
stop
base level,
him.
I have a
But
moral
when the
problem
chat needed him most,
that
he muted
makes me
himself.
not okay.
100 years
But maybe it's
passed,
not my
but I
battle to
believe
fight. It
Avast
probably
could
isn't my
kick
battle to
Flame.
fight, but I wish
I
someone
mean,
was fighting
if you
the
want
battle.
to be pure Machiavellian about this, technically speaking, it's your battle to win from the perspective that if you are someone who really knows what they're talking about, and the other management is making stupid decisions and is things
No, it's not
commentary
about me.
affect them more than their own scrim results and otherwise. In theory, that should benefit you as being a team that isn't falling prey to them.
But it's
if
not
it be pure Machiavellian, I know you're speaking
but I'm saying, but it's not about just players being benched or released. It also just the perception that this player is bad, which happens a lot. And sometimes teams lose, and then someone will put a blame on this specific player, and then they're oh well, this player would have been better, or this team would have been better if this player didn't play poorly, and then the entire narrative is that this player threw the match and didn't play at their best.
Right finger,
and then it sticks with them for the entirety of
brain Pepala, right finger,
and that's already happened multiple times.
Brain
it's just I don't know.
Right finger, pile
it's definitely not my battle to fight. And, I can definitely profit off of it.
Right finger, pile of poo flames,
I think,
brain Pepala, right finger, pile of poo flames, brain Pepala.
I feel at the end of the day, the management that would fire people based off analysts saying that someone should be fired, it doesn't matter if they say that or not, because they still have to criticize that player whether or not they're
going to. But do you think, I agree, but do you think that there haven't been players who have been harshly criticized for losses, and then it translated
Remember
into
when you were talking about Overwatch?
I don't know. I just think it negatively impacts their careers, and it's harsher on the 17 and 19-year-olds in the Overwatch, or 19-year-olds in the Overwatch League than in normal sports. And I guess I don't need to be Robin Hood. I don't need to be Robin Hood. But in my head, it feels wrong to let it happen. But I guess in reality, I should just let it happen and not care. But it feels
you have to be a real peanut brain to let one loss if
it's not the. Right.
No, I mean, I'm not calling you a peanut brain. I'm saying I feel like you have to be a peanut brain to think that if let's say I fucked up really bad in the match and I made us lose a match, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you were to say, "Oh, Super's a goddamn garbage player because he lost his team the game, get him out of here," I feel like that, the level of the amount of mass you have in your brain, it's not a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed. But I would say that if let's swap you with Muma for a second, right? Because Muma didn't play well in World Cup, and that's the narrative. Muma was awful. Super should have played World Cup, and that's the storyline everyone goes with, right? It's the same thing, and I don't think it affects Numa, but that same situation happens to other players, and I think they crumble.
Management look good.
My point, I can't solve it, right? And like maybe it's just like this Robin Hood mentality that doesn't need to exist. My point is that like people are getting
players there's plenty of stories in traditional sports of players crumbling because they couldn't take the pressure on going from like high school to college.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, you're probably right. Agreed. Maybe at the end of the day, I'm just wrong.
Sports that not every player is going to have the mental. Like it goes any competition period, players are going to boom. Like players boom. It's as old as time. It's been happening before we were born. It will continue to happen long after we're in the ground.
Yeah,
like
I feel you.
If you're in a competition, people gonna boom. Like it's not even Overwatch specific. I feel like.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, maybe it's just like my defensive nature of the like mentally weak people in the league. Maybe like it's not my bad at all. Like I probably just shouldn't care. I just feel like
loosely based on the
it's a problem, kind of, and maybe it's
fairy
not.
tale
Maybe
picture
it's okay,
book of the same name by William Steig.
People, like,
Directed by Andrew Adamson and Vicky Jensen in their directorial debuts.
Like that kind of...
It stars Mike
Well, then
Myers,
what? I mean,
Eddie
shouldn't
Murphy,
those people probably
Cameron
like
Diaz,
understand the career they're
and
getting
John
into?
Lithgow as the voice.
I'm not gonna lie. Like if you're going,
I mean, you're right. You're right.
Public
It's like
light,
I mean,
like,
you're not wrong. You're definitely right. It's just I guess
storylines,
it's easier to say that than to do that. And I think it's easier
Disney
to.
Films.
I think it's easier to deal with for some people, and I think that like the league is so young
Flame
that
won't
like
stop until the heat
not
death
everyone's
of the
ready for
universe
it.
occurs.
But at the same time, these people need to succeed because I don't think the management on every single team is perfect, but I don't think that there's a lot of people that you can say, oh, you can replace this person with someone else, because I don't think that there's a lot of qualified people in general. And like maybe that's the bigger problem, but that's like kind of been my angle of it, is like I feel like the league is so young and the people are so new at their jobs, and like the concept of everything is so new that like propagating negativity doesn't really benefit anybody, because not a lot of people are ready to deal with it. And like that's maybe at the end of the day, that's kind of the problem with the Overwatch League now, but in 5 years it probably won't be a problem because everyone will have developed thick skin. But right now I don't think it's fair to like expect everyone to have thick skin initially, and like I think the pressure gets propagated too much from like one or two posts or tweets or something.
So you think skin is only going to develop thicker over time and sort of an Overwatch evolution? It's not without game design changes that the skin will get thicker. That's what's required, because hasn't skin been thick for eternity in other sports? Or like, why do we have to wait for the league to mature for the skin to get thicker here? What exactly, like what changes as the league gets older with player personalities and types? Like what happens? What's the difference? I'm trying to figure it out. Like why should the league being older impact players' mentalities?
No, but it's not just players. It's like, I mean, today's example was staff, but like I don't think everyone in Overwatch League has had an esports job before.
When we
like
have Flame, the throwers from Houston, am I right?
Like the idea of like having this now 100,000 or 400,000 or a couple million people like on your ass is like very new. I mean, like my day to day very much is like keeping the mental health of everyone like healthy, I guess, on the team, right? And my job is very hard. Like that is a very hard task to accomplish all the time. My point is, I don't think I deal with it poorly, but I would say that there's probably people who get mentally broken faster. But I think that the age of the league, like the longer you're dealing with it, the better you'll become at it. But I think some people get shit on way too hard initially, and like it's like super overwhelming. I mean, I don't know. You're probably like at the end of the day, when I hear myself talk, it's probably more just me being defensive of like the younger and like less experienced players, and like the idea of people getting shit on every day and like having to deal with that. My job is very
hard. I tweet
and then
like
feeling
a
like maybe
Redditor
too much of it's coming from the caster desk, but maybe there is no solution and it's not even worth fighting. But I do think that like the problem exists and no one really talks about it, and then everyone just kind of like allows it to go on. But I don't know if it needs to be as bad as it is, or if it needs to be as prevalent as it is.
So do you think this is a widespread, you would talk to every Overwatch League team and you would find players that agree that the casters or the analysts are being too harsh and it has hurt their careers, or the staff in those within?
Yeah.
You think that it is 100% true that everyone would agree with that, and that the organizations themselves have had and the staff or the players have been impacted by the casters and analysts on the Overwatch League broadcast?
Yes.
All right. You know? All right. Well, I mean, I'm a fair person. If that is true, then maybe something has to be examined, but maybe you don't examine it within the broadcast. You examine it.
I mean, I agree. But it's It's a league-wide thing. It's not like it's not like a. This isn't like a Flame versus Casters thing, right? It's like me versus like.
No, you're saying that you're the mouthpiece of everyone that has been hurt by the casters, or analysts, is what it sounds like. It's not you specifically.
No, yeah, exactly. I don't care if people are shitting on me. Like
you're sort of the Joan of Arc for this cause, and you're over here looking to get reformation.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's gonna happen, but realistically, yeah, I don't really. There's no benefit to the Outlaws for me arguing, right? It's like, who cares? We'll just play goats again. Like, I mean, maybe one day we'll play DPS comp just to like make everyone happy, or maybe it'll work against a certain team, but it's not gonna work against Vancouver. But point being, yeah, I do think that like there's a league-wide consensus that the casters have been too harsh on some players and have had players' careers in their hands a little too much more than I would say other esports, or it feels like that in a way. But I think that a lot of that propagates from the fact that like Overwatch League community is pretty small on the grand scale, so like everything that's on broadcast winds up on Reddit. And the Reddit hive mind is like very similar to the Twitter hive mind in the users, I would say. So everything that like spreads pretty thoroughly. There's probably people on Twitter that don't read Reddit, and there's probably people on Reddit that don't read Twitter, but it doesn't feel that way, I guess.
Add Flame to the call.
And I think that makes sense because of just how small the Overwatch community is and like how tight knit a lot of the viewership is. I think I could say yes.
I feel like there's a standard here that the commentators should always like, and again, I'm not, this is broad spectrum, nothing specific one way or another, but the standard being applied here that you're trying to apply to Overwatch content is that, you know, it should always be right every time, all the time. But the reality is that coaches and staff get things wrong all the time. Like, everyone gets everything wrong all the time because A, it's involving esport, and B, like, that's how it is in a sport. Like, there's terrible managements even to this day in the NFL. There's takes that are not necessarily right, you know, left, right, and center. But the point is, commentary-wise, no one's going to get it right all the time. But also the management side, neither is the management. But when it comes to the job of the management is to find good players, put them on the team, etc. I don't think that the commentary side should be held liable for decisions.
No, I mean, I think I've already gotten past that point. Like, I don't think the blame can be put on the casters. I just think that like there is a serious problem that exists. Like, I don't think that you can blame the casters for the problem, but I think that the problem exists solely because of the ecosystem that we're in, and it's not their fault, and it's probably not their place to fix it, quote unquote. But I think everyone being aware of it is a start, because maybe it'll impact the word usage, or maybe like how hard they go on somebody or something. But like, to say that,
I promise not all of us outlaws.
I've dug myself a pretty deep hole here, right? Because now I've gone to the point where
yes, you have.
Every team.
Yes, you have. You have indeed dug yourself quite a hole.
But the hole here, I don't think is like, I'm not saying anything that's like inherently offensive. I just feel like this problem exists, and you could ask players on every team if they feel like the casters have ever shit on them to the point where it hurt their standings or the way the public perceives them or anything like that, and they would say yes. And I think that problem gets like amplified in Overwatch League because of how small the entire like community is. And so like there's very few fans, you don't get to see your like home stadiums yet, right? But if like Reddit's shitting on you and Twitter's shitting on you, it's very rare that they're not in line, I guess. So it's not the caster's fault, but I would say that the reality of it is that the casters can create problems that maybe they're not meaning to create, and maybe they shouldn't be creating, but they are creating solely because of the state of like where everybody is in the league.
So the flip side to this, I will say, from the casting point of view, is that I know for me and for my work, I constantly over-obsess over getting things right, because the reality is that I do think like casters do wield like pretty good power, but on the same note, if you ever say something wrong that's definitively wrong, that hive mind that you're saying is like marching to the beat of the casters is going to jump down the caster's throat in a nanosecond as soon as they say something objectively wrong. So like, I don't caster like if your argument is okay, casters influence opinion, you know, to a degree of like going from like a hot to a very hot.
It's not the argument though. It's not the argument.
From the caster point of view, I don't think you can like create something out of whole cloth that isn't necessarily there in a lot of cases, because there's countless examples of casters just getting their like junk kicked in by Reddit when they're wrong.
Yeah, my point wasn't that the casters are doing something like inherently atrocious. My point is that the way that the like I understand that the casters have every right to say, you know, cut this player, or this player is underperforming, or you know, this team should have ran this strategy because of this, that, and that makes sense. That's fine. My point was that we've hit a point. There's definitely a line that can be crossed where you start questioning the integrity of the staff or the player themselves.
Wait, I thought you said that was the line, though. I thought you said the line of beat that was already crossed was saying that someone deserves to be cut. Now you're saying it's okay? I don't know.
Hello.
No, my point was that, like,
I used the Alpro a couple months
if they want to say that, in reality, in
Then
sports,
the
it's
casters
fine.
called my
And it's not a
trash.
line that they can't
I
cross
was
because they're
then
commentators.
fired.
But I was saying
House
Overwatch
taken away
League,
from me and am
it's
now
bad. It's like, in
homeless.
Overwatch League specifically, it
Help
is a line
me,
that is crossed
casters
because
need to
of
be
how
nerfed.
bad, like, the scene is on, like, a base management and, like, fan size level. Like, I don't like them saying it. I understand they have the right to say it, and that they can say it because they're paid to say stuff like that. My point is that when they do say that, in Overwatch League, it leads to a lot of bad things that maybe they're not aware of or they don't think is happening.
What the
but
hell
it, like,
is he
it
even
exists.
saying
Like,
anymore? I think
the problem
he's
is
just
there,
confused by himself.
and I don't know that I can solve it. I don't think anyone can solve it. But the point is that the hive mind is so small and the management is so new, and a lot of people are very not in tune with the way the league
My point
is.
was that our point
like, how the
wasn't
game
that
is played,
point when our
even,
point
like,
was
at
that
the
we
highest
did our
level.
point.
That when
To
it
get
starts
to our
impacting
point, and
people,
our
it's
point was
probably
my point
more
on
so
how
than
to
in the
get to my
NFL or in
point.
the NBA. Like, I don't think that these people. It's just like a different thing. It's like a bunch of kids getting
had slowly but surely
barraged
to
by
the
like this
bottom
small
of the
group
Mariana.
of like 500,000 people or
Trench
something
feels Goodman
that are all
clap.
listening to the same, you know, like 20 Reddit accounts or Twitter accounts. And so it like
My
just
point
makes
is
their
my
lives
point
harder.
is my
There's
point
no,
is my
I
point
can't
is
solve
my
it, right? I
point
can't
is-
fix it. And like maybe that's the lesson here is that I can't fix it. But I just think that like pretending that it's not real is like dangerous. And I don't really like that everyone pretends that it's not real or that it's not
Punch
happening.
Tree's
or that,
flame
you know,
is
everyone's,
trying
like,
to dig
flawless
through
here.
bedrock. Punch Trees, how does someone agree with every counterpoint?
I can't
Continue
fix
to
the
make the
problem
exact
of people
same
losing their
argument for
jobs
2
because of Reddit
hours.
comments or analyst comments. I can't, but I can acknowledge that that's a problem
Bumper
and try
stared
my
at the
best
burger
not
in
to
his hand.
push that narrative.
Normally, you
Solely
love
because I know
chowing
that it
down on
happens,
his
whether or
Big
not I
Mac,
want it to or not.
like he chowed on these beta
make
tanks
sense?
like SW.
Wait, is that Jane? Is that Jane, chat?
But not today.
Is that Jane?
Today,
Is he in
his
here?
burger
Is he
was a
back?
sign of his
Let's
failure.
Flame. What do you
The
think about
double
talking
patties of
to?
meat reminded
Okay.
John
What's it?
of
Jane? Let's how
succulent
gets
juicy
you in the
that
combo,
only the
Jane.
mighty vein
Let's
get you in
vascular
here.
Muscles of aiming.
Let's see what Jane has to say. Let's see what
He's
Jane.
in an Uber. He said he's in an Uber.
He's in an Uber?
In
God damn it.
conclusion,
Okay, Flame, go on.
get
Keep on,
hurt
continue
when the
going on
casters
here.
are mean.
Okay.
No, I mean that was it. That's all
Oh,
I
that's
have.
it? We're done?
It makes
That's
me
all
mad.
he had.
Unless
Oh,
you
yeah,
have
that's
any-
it,
unless you have
huh?
any questions?
Oh.
I mean, you guys milked me. I can rant
Okay,
forever. But
we're
my
done.
point,
Okay.
my
I'm
point was
glad
more.
Owl
I
has
don't know.
diversity.
I would be down
Nice
to talk
to
to
see
Jane,
the
but I
pirate
would like to hear his
disabled
take on it.
GMS.
I guess because
Woo!
he knows what's.
Whew. Okay. Well, that's it, huh? That's it. Well, I think we covered a lot of important ground
to see
today.
Avast torso.
And I mean, really, we've seen the evidence for both sides, and we'll see what develops. We'll see what develops
Not
from there.
much.
Maybe
Yeah,
the
not
reason
much. Nothing
Houston never
intelligent's gonna
really
come
got
from
good
it.
is
Just
because
joined.
they're too busy listening.
Who's that?
to
Hi, I'm out of scrims.
Oh,
Flame
Swimmer,
loves
you're
to
you're.
swim.
How have the games been?
Oh, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know myself. I'm
mean,
more of a
it's-
not game watcher. I'm more
It's
of a.
Glad's first charge. Like, I'm not one that say like, hey, we should cut